Hello, World Wide Web. I'm Dr. Shado, the internet personality with the best monkey suit, and it's time to finish off the Planet of the Apes trilogy. Or more likely, just tick one more box off of the Unstoppable Planet of the Apes sequel machine with War for the Planet of the Apes. As far as comparing the reboot series to the original, War is somewhat along the lines of Battle for the Planet of the Apes. Then again, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was also like Battle for the Planet of the Apes. Conquest happened at the end of Rise. I've yet to see a reboot series version of Escape from the Planet of the Apes. I'm going to be really disappointed if we never get to see Andy Serkis go back to the 70s. Or hell, it's a reboot series. Make it the 80s! Anyway, the story this time is that Caesar and the apes have grown weary of their forest village and the constant threat of attacks by humans. However, while they're searching for a new sanctuary to call home, tragedy befalls the apes, and Caesar must go forth and seek revenge, along with a large but not too large adventuring party. However, the dark truth behind the humans' attacks results in all-out war. Between humans. If you want a war between humans and apes, go watch Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Anyway, let's watch War for the Planet of the Apes and see who won. Hint, there's a reason the series is called Planet of the Apes. Opening up, in case you missed it, they cover the backstory regarding the previous two films in the franchise. You know, Rise of the Planet of the Apes and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Half expecting a chimpanzee to pop out like, out now on 4K Ultra High Definition Blu-ray. They even have a backstory setting up the events of this movie. Good thing, because there was an in-between-quel novel, War for the Planet of the Apes Revelations, but you don't need to read it to understand Caesar and his apes have a hidden base in the woods, but the human armies have sent forth battalion after battalion with the intent to take him down by any means necessary. Up to and including utilizing apes themselves. It's a little weird to see humans swearing up and down that they cannot possibly coexist with apes while literally coexisting with apes. But then again, in most of the Planet of the Apes films, you have a few human characters on the ape side, so it's interesting to see the inverse of that. Not exact, because these apes aren't on equal terms with the humans. Rather, they are pretty much slaves. Either way, the apes point out the fortress, and the important guy, the only one with a crossbow instead of a gun, Preacher, played by Gabriel Shavara, takes out the ape gunner. And the apes lose. Well, that was a short movie. Oh, but what's this? While the humans have guns and motherfucking rocket launchers on their side, the apes can still overwhelm a battalion with a smokescreen followed by countless sharp, pointy sticks. After this, the humans are practically wiped out, and Preacher calls the Colonel to let them know. They fucked up.
Colonel, I don't think I'm gonna make it, sir. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, sir.
Listen to me. You kill as many as you can.
So I guess that would just be the one. Don't bring a knife to a gunfight, bring some sturdy mahogany. Priest is not the only survivor captured by the apes, though. There's a few more humans, and also the gorilla Red, played by Ty Olsson. Despite being a poorly treated slave of the humans, it seems it was his own choice to join them because, fuck it, he knows guns at least should be better than trying to sign language people to death.
How long you think woods can protect you? Humans destroy you.
I don't know, Red. To be honest, Wood's been protecting him pretty well all this time. It would probably be a better strategy for the humans to just wait for him to die of old age. Furthermore, the humans see their colonel as a god. He intends to wipe out all the apes and has no interest in peace whatsoever. So with this in mind, Caesar gathers the 4 surviving humans up and lets them go about their merry way, asking them, pretty please stop trying to kill us.
They are the message, Maurice. He will see we are not savages.
And he's totally gonna give a shit, too. Winter, played by Alex Panovic, also let Red go. Mainly because he's an idiot that let his guard down, but well. Also, yes, Caesar is still played by Andy Serkis, and Maurice the orangutan by Karen Konoval. The day following the attack, 2 apes have returned from their adventure that I didn't even know they were on. Guess I should have read the novel. Anyway, it's Rocket, played by Terry Notary, and Caesar's son Bright Eyes, played by Max Lloyd Jones. Conveniently enough, they just so happen to be looking for a new faraway home for the apes and found one. Some paradise past the desert. Winter says that they should head out at once, but Caesar figures the apes need their beauty sleep, and they should wait before going to the Promised Land. However, that night, Caesar notices something out of place. So either Mother Earth is flossing, or the Psycho Colonel that his people think is a god, and said very clearly that he has no interest in letting you live, didn't listen when you asked him kindly not to kill you. Unfortunately for Caesar, it's the latter, and when he tells his wife to stay put while he checks things out, things turn out to be soldiers sweeping the area in an attempt to assassinate Caesar. Wouldn't you know it, the Dum-Dums have a little trouble telling the apes apart.
99 target acquired. Repeat. King Kong is dead. Let's go. I get out from here.
Be advised, Mighty Joe Young and George are still unaccounted for. Returning to his den, Caesar winds up face-to-face with the Colonel, played by Woody Harrelson, and also finds out they thought they got Caesar when in fact they just fucking murdered his wife and son. Thus Caesar gives chase to get his revenge! And suffers a fall that in reality would probably kill him, but why am I trying to bring reality into a movie about CGI apes fighting a post-apocalyptic war with all of mankind? Therefore, Caesar survives this fall, only slightly winded from the experience. However, nothing can soften the blow of losing his wife and son in this senseless tragedy. I'll spare perhaps the fact that he has another son, Cornelius, played by Devin Dalton. Yeah, they established this fact a few scenes ago, but it softens the impact of that whole wife and child murdered thing. Anyhow, Caesar still wants revenge, and leaves Cornelius in the care of Lake, played by Sarah Canning. Don't worry, though. He's not completely ignoring the safety of his people to go off on some silly revenge quest against the Colonel.
When I find him, the soldiers will all come after me. That may give you the best chance to get out of the woods.
His revenge plot works with the plans of getting all of his people to the Promised Land. It's like trying to find a way to meld your parenting with your drinking problem. With that, Caesar heads off to find the Colonel and kill him! Except he's stopped before he can go by 3 other apes, Rocket, Maurice, and the gorilla, Luca, played by Michael Adam Waith, who stop him in his tracks. Not to prevent him from going on this revenge quest, mind you, but rather to join him because, hey, what's an adventure without party members to argue over the loot? On this journey, they find a few shoddy buildings, and Caesar goes to investigate. But what's this? A human is here collecting firewood. I'm just wondering why he even went for his gun. The guy knew he was encountering at least 3 armed apes. You don't need to get flanked to not survive that encounter. It seems this guy also was part of the military group that the Colonel runs, Alpha and Omega. Oh well, now that he's dead, the apes can loot the fuck out of the place, taking whatever they find. However, one of those things they find is a human child, played by Amaya Miller. Did Maurice just correct her? Like, no, it's not it's ooh. It seems this young lady can't talk, and considering they just murdered the fuck out of her one and only caregiver, Maurice wants to know if they can keep her. Caesar says there's no pets allowed on this journey, but Maurice is like, please, and eventually Caesar just gives up and lets him take her along. Eventually their travels lead to another human camp, populated by Alpha and Omega, and it turns out Winter as well. The ape betrayed his people, and Caesar somehow managed to slip into the encampment while the cameras were off to confront him about it. He says he gave away the location of the secret ape village to have his own life spared because Red told him that far more humans were coming to wipe them out. Then Caesar kills him. I mean, it's totally not his fault. Look, people were nearby and Winter started going all ooh, so Caesar had to keep him quiet and whoopsie-doodle might have kind of sort of smothered him to death in the process. Oh well, he can leave the camp without incident, returning to the group where nobody will judge him for what he's done. Except for one ape, perhaps.
Ape. Not kill. Ape.
Convoluted writing. Kill ape. Still trying to track down the location of the Colonel, Caesar's group decides to tail the humans as they move out. However, before they get too far, the humans have stopped for some reason. That reason turned out to be shoot the fuck out of their own men. And women. These are some equal opportunity executions going on here. Oh fuck, I thought this planet had enough problems with warring humans and intelligent apes. Now we got motherfucking zombies on top of it. Caesar asks why they shot him, but the man doesn't seem to be able to talk, so they shoot him. Mercy kill, though. He's dying anyway, so fuck it. This took long enough that the apes lost track of the humans, though, so they do what you tend to do when you need map data of an area, and climb the nearest tower. However, this only served to give a thief the chance to make off with one of their horses. Pursuing them, they track the guy down to an old house, and once they corner him, he surrenders instantly.
Bad ape.
Snappy dresser, but bad ape. Indeed, this would be Bad Ape, played by Steven Zahn. He's the comic relief. It's weird to say that is a specific role of character in a Planet of the Apes movie, but...
I'm okay.
Also noted by the fact that he was called Bad Ape by the humans so much, he actually thought that was his name. Despite the fact that he has almost as good of a grasp on the English language as Caesar, and is the only ape shown to not know sign language. He was a zoo ape that got the simian flu as it spread from human to human, and got the smarts to boot. Also, he got these handy-dandy MREs from a nearby fortress, but he's not so keen on going back there.
Can you take us?
Human zoo? No, go back there. Everyone dead. I come here. Very safe here.
How long until he agrees to go back?
Maybe I take you.
And all it took was a little crying about how the Colonel murdered your son. And wife, but the son's the only part you really had to bring up anyway. I mean, that's the part he cared about. Traveling further into the frozen north, they find the fortress, and to their horror, crucified apes set up like the scarecrows around the Forbidden Zone in the original movie. Also, some horses, but...
I don't see riders.
You know, these guys would be a lot more effective on their whole kill Caesar idea if they would actually pull the trigger sometimes when he's around. But oh no, one of the soldiers' bayonets lightly pricked Luca in the side. Okay, it was worse than that, a few inches deep in the abdomen, but it still doesn't seem like much when you consider as a result he fucking dies in about a minute and a half. With the loss of Luca, Caesar decides it was a mistake to bring the group along on his quest for revenge, and decides to take the fortress on all by his lonesome. This goes even worse than you might expect. All that just to get captured before you even get to the gate. I mean, that is one way to get inside, but it's hardly optimal. At the very least, it does mean he's captured alive and not shot outright. Then again, these guys who seem to want him dead so bad and have him in chains still feel the need to get exposition out instead of actually finishing the job. The Colonel here, for instance, needs a refresher on the plot so far.
Who did I kill that night?
My wife. My son.
Fortunately, I did just have another son, just in case. And Lake looks enough like Cornelia that people thought she was her when they first saw trailers for this movie.
Caesar also says he knew where to find the Colonel because he heard how more soldiers were coming from the north to join him and finish off the apes for good. He just gets a chuckle out of our big bad before he tosses Caesar in the cell with the others, and we jump over to the next morning to watch the Alpha Omega morning chants and screaming. Caesar's just sitting there like, geez, what do these guys are going to do next? Fling poo at each other? The Colonel also comes out, but don't expect some big grandiose speech about his plans or his ideals. He just gives the crowd a little Pope-like hand blessing, and they hop to work without a word. Well, they hop to yelling at the apes and forcing them to work, chopping stone in the quarry and hauling it to build a massive wall. This might not be the best plan, though, as while apes are big and strong, the older ones aren't nearly as capable of hauling giant fucking boulders around.
Donkey! Get him!
Okay.
It's funny how the humans call the apes donkey, and sometimes Kong, but never both at the same time. I mean, we wouldn't want to have some unwanted litigation already. This is the apocalypse, after all. But the humans can't afford for work to stop on the wall, so when Caesar interrupts the whipping of the orangutan and ends up triggering a mutiny, he is brought forth to be whipped into submission, as the Colonel demands Caesar tell the apes to get the fuck back to work.
Tell them. Give them food and water.
And I thought lunch in Hollywood was expensive. Fearing for Caesar's life, the apes suddenly jump up like, work? Hard, back-breaking work? That's my favorite kind of work! More work, please! Which at least finally gives a logical reason for the Colonel to not blow Caesar's brains out anymore. Not to say he can't torture him, so Caesar can spend a little time up on a cross before the colonel has him brought by just to tell him that if he tries to mess up the flow of work anymore, more apes shall die. Like, more than just from the grueling labor. However, the conversation turns into exposition when Caesar mentioned he noticed the men preparing defensive weapons around the wall, and he realizes that the army from the north isn't coming to join the colonel, but to try to kill him. This brings us to the falling out between the main forces and this little regiment of Alpha and Omega. You see, it seems the simian flu mutated. Every human alive today carries it and at least is immune to the initial horrifying death problem it initially caused. However, this new mutation is arguably even worse.
Not by killing us, but by robbing us of those things that make us human. Our speech, our higher thinking.
Look on the bright side, Colonel. All the ladies in hot loincloth bikinis you could ever ask for. In sign language. This infection is highly contagious, and its first sign is a nosebleed coupled with an inability to speak. This ailment befell the Colonel's own son, so he fucking killed him. As is the rule of Alpha and Omega, anyone and everyone carrying the infection is to die. No mercy, no exceptions. The risk to the future of humanity is too great. He also says something about being rather pleased with himself that he killed Caesar's son, which the ape obviously takes umbrage with.
What do you think my men would have done to your apes if you'd killed me?
Now, Caesar could probably just grab some shaving cream, shave his scalp, and take over. But don't worry, remember, Caesar went at it alone, which means the rest of his group is still outside and looking for a way in.
Friends, no, go in. No, go. Friend.
Oh, comic relief, you silly. That's not what a plot hole is. So Bad Ape found a way for the good apes to get inside, while on the inside, it looks like the Colonel realized it's hard to get work done if your workers starve to death, so, hell, may as well actually feed them now, and provide water. And for Caesar... he gets to raise awareness for the ALS Association. A bit late to the party, but I always am with internet trends. While he spends this night freezing half to death, hallucinating more visions of Koba, he's eventually cut down and moved over to a cage. That way, when the little girl shows up waltzing right into the middle of the compound, having spotlights shown on her from time to time, nobody noticing at fucking all, she will have a much easier time helping him than she would have if he were still tied to a cross. Yeah, you're starving, freezing, dehydrated, and probably going to die within the hour, but don't worry, here's a little doll to cheer you up. She does eventually get him something to drink, as well as a handful of grain to survive the night. However, while she could easily walk in and do all of this undetected, wouldn't you know it, now there just so happens to be a patrol going by that the apes are sure will find her and kill her. Don't worry, Rocket uses himself as a distraction to allow her to slip away, as he has the crap kicked out of him and then gets moved into the pen to again have the crap kicked out of him. Come morning, the Colonel is surprised to find Caesar alive, and also to find something else. Well, maybe that wouldn't have happened if you had anyone guarding your fortress against the unstoppable threat of little girls. As Caesar somehow survived last night, he's allowed to join the rest of the slave labor in the pen, which means he's able to conspire with Rocket and signal information back to Maurice and Bad Ape. Those two continue working in the underground tunnels to find a way to get the apes out, but first things first, we have to come up with a name for the little girl. Well, as it just so happens, the little shiny trinket she got from Bad Ape works as a perfect homage to the original series.
Nova. Nova.
Could be worse. She could have been Pontiac. They find the spot in the tunnels right under the cells, which just so happens to be blocked off with a very thin layer of soft dirt. Minecraft physics are best physics. Thing is, they can't escape quite yet because, whoops, there's water flowing into the tunnels, so they have to fix that and figure out how best to get everyone out together while the tunnels are drained. And the best example yet of the ever-increasing intelligence of the apes from movie to movie, they have discovered the awesome, complex problem-solving skills of poop slinging. As the guard is so upset at this, he marches right down there into the cage, surrounded by ass-tons of apes, and easily falls into the trap they made for him. This gives the apes the keys, meaning they can sneak into the pen where the children are being kept and free them as well. Now the tunnels are drained enough, and they can pretty much just leave. That wouldn't make for an exciting climax, though. So this is the perfect time for the Northern Army to swoop in and start attacking Alpha and Omega. All the while the apes are just there like, fuck it, I'm just trying to escape into the woods and just do ape shit. Except for Caesar, that is, who still cannot forgive the Colonel for killing Caesar's wife and only son before this movie. But the point is, he must pay. So Caesar heads off to the final conflict, and... It turns out the guy was defeated by a Cabbage Patch doll. As he is infected, the Colonel downright wants Caesar to kill him now, but it's at this moment that Caesar realizes that revenge really isn't all it's cracked up to be, and he can't take the man out. Fortunately for Caesar, the guy just ends up shooting himself anyway, tying up that loose end. However, when Caesar moves to flee the compound, around the same time the humans have decided the best thing to do during the human-on-human war is to shoot at the unarmed apes just trying to run away, Red realizes maybe he didn't pick the best side to back in this thing. Don't worry, Caesar is here to chuck a grenade at some guests and save the day! Caesar's getting revenge cock-blocked left and right here. This was from Preacher, who has come to finish Caesar off once and for all. That's what I like to see. Deaths that don't leave you like, well, maybe he survived. Oh, we didn't see the body. Oh yeah, that's because he's all over the fucking walls. This was Red redeeming himself. Shortly before getting fucking shot anyway, allowing Caesar to complete his plan of blow everything the fuck up and be the action hero ape of the ages, running away from the hugest explosion any ape ever has. This destroys the base as well as Alpha and Omega for good. The Northern Army, though? They still seem interested in killing the apes. Fortunately for Caesar's legion, the blasts just so happen to trigger a massive avalanche, and their apes so fuck it climb some trees and they're okay. Therefore, happy ending! Caesar leads his people across the desert to the Promised Land. Oh yeah, but he did get shot. Like, weeks ago at this point. Or at the very least, days. Point is, while he managed to survive all the way here without anyone even noticing the arrowhead in his side, now it's time for him to fully embrace the biblical inspiration for his character's journey through the film and fucking die, trusting Maurice to relay the story of his life and what he did to unite ape kind everywhere. But maybe leave out that bit where he bunks with James Franco for a while. I mean, just modify the story a bit. So make it about fast cars and hot women. Just make it just like Fast and Furious, but with apes. Yeah. Anyway, that was War for the Planet of the Apes. And the storytelling gets a bit wonky, but it is a fantastic movie experience nonetheless. The presentation is some of the best I've seen, both in terms of the quality of the special effects and the cinematography. War for the Planet of the Apes practically bombards you with breathtaking scene after breathtaking scene, and the music only enhances that, with a great score that also slipped into awkward a time or two, but it's usually fantastic. Despite this mountain of praise, though, the storyline is a bit hit and miss. The basics of it work, the villain works, and the motivations all work when looking at this movie on the basis of its own merits, but if attached to the greater story setup of the last two movies, it starts to lose its luster. One thing I find hard to get over is the heart of the revenge plot. Caesar's wife and son were killed. That's terrible. They spent so long making Bright Eyes grow as a character last movie, and then he dies. But they still want Caesar's lineage to go on, so he has another son, which drastically lessens the impact of Bright Eyes' death. Instead, it makes the character feel superfluous. I feel like it would have worked fine if Caesar sought revenge for his wife alone and Bright Eyes was allowed to remain his surviving lineage and maybe grow more as a character. Effectively, he could have died between movies and never came up in the story, and it would have gone just about the same. Yeah, Caesar connects with Bad Ape over the loss of a son, but I'm pretty sure the chimp would have understood the loss of a wife just as well. Overall, War for the Planet of the Apes doesn't connect too much with the stories that came before, instead trying to focus on being its own story and setting up the world for future installments. The problem there is that this standalone story told in War is a pretty basic one with a few disappointments along the way. However, the visual fidelity and beauty of the cinematography make up for the shortcomings so well, it still comes in at 4 primitive poo pictures out of 5. Yeah, a lot of the story is based around biblical themes, which is sophisticated, but it's also been done quite a lot, so we kinda see it coming. Thank you all for watching. I've been Dr. Shado. And remember, Caesar did so much for ape kind, cruising around in his pimped out GLX doing drifts around the Forbidden Zone!